What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, as always, TJ Trimboli, and with me is my co-host, owner, and operator of the Cerulean Gym, Mr. James O'Reilly.
Hey, buddy.
Each week, we run down a movie from my 1,000 movies in theaters, and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. And today is a first here at Front Row Cinema. It's a twofer, an animated double header. Two of the biggest franchises of the 90s. Big Jim, what are we watching tonight?
We have a verified heavy hitter double feature of animated movies Rugrats, like the original Rugrats movie, and Pokemon, the first movie.
Two huge quintessential properties in the 90s. Probably two of the biggest, I would imagine, for kids of our generation growing up, right? You'd be hard pressed to find anything bigger of a property than Pokemon and Rugrats at the time.
I mean, Pokemon definitely reaches that level. Rugrats, I feel like, is a little more niche than that. Like, it's not quite the global phenomenon that Pokemon is.
What's something
But
not
yeah, like
global?
for a kid in the '90s, I watched a lot of Rugrats, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like especially growing up, probably at least in the US, Rugrats was like everywhere.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
that was a
everybody I knew watched it. My
yeah.
cousin wasn't allowed to watch Rugrats. Like
Why?
my cousins. This was very weird at the time, which is why I know what you're saying is true. I was like, you can't watch Rugrats. What are you talking about? The episode, I guess, where like Phil and Lil get into an argument
Mm.
about like which one their parents like better. There's like an episode like that, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure at the end they learn that like everybody's pretty cool and we should all like each other. And
Yeah.
like it's not about who's the favorite, or there even isn't a favorite, right? But like my uncle, like just after that, shut it down, like because they started asking him like which one they liked the best, and like he was just like, nope, we're not watching that show anymore.
Like Rugrats is out, putting too many ideas in your heads.
Yeah, yeah,
Can't be asking me these kinds of questions. I'm trying to have breakfast.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, yes, those were the only people I knew that didn't watch Rugrats. Let me put it that way.
Hilarious. That's a good one. Yeah, no, Rugrats, I think, was all over the place in my house. We were very much a Nickelodeon family. So every Nickelodeon show from back then was on the TV ad nauseum. And it is so funny watching some of them today because it is insane just how overly sexual and innuendo filled every single one of them were. And Rugrats was no different. I remember an episode where like Tommy is going to have to stay home and be babysat by his grandpa because, the parents are going out for the night. And grandpa's like, we got some movies for you, Sprout. Like, he's like, Godzilla for you, or Reptar for you. And for grandpa, Lonely Space Vixens. He's like, but that's for after you go to bed. And it's like, did grandpa just tell Tommy's gonna watch porn?
Yeah, but I mean, like, wouldn't you tell that to a baby? They don't know what the hell's going on. Like, you didn't do anything like that crazy. You just said like space vixens, which is suggestive, but it's not explicit.
I know, but I just love when you go back and see things like that and you're like, wow, that went right over my head as a child.
Yeah,
And
well,
there
right, because you're like the baby. How the fuck would you know what he's saying?
Yeah, and there is we're gonna get into it later, but there is a lot of that in the Rugrats movie also. Like there are a lot of not just innuendos, but just hilarious moments of just like adulthood that you wouldn't understand if you're watching this as a kid, like until you've lived as an adult, and then you
Yeah,
watch
which
some of it.
is this is interesting because I don't know that I picked up on as much of it. Maybe I'm just still immature and not too bright, but I didn't feel like I caught a lot of like innuendo and such and stuff like that. So
All
I'm
right,
kind
well,
of interested to see what you point
yeah,
out.
when we do into that deep dive, I've got a couple. I got a couple in there. But with the Rugrats, this was the I was looking up into stuff like this. It was the first feature length Nicktoon was did absolute gangbusters. The hype, it's hilarious that for something like this that was pretty much centralized to America, the hype for it was huge that they would put out leading up into this movie. Is like, do you remember like the orange VHS tapes that they were
Yes,
putting
yeah.
out for the
I
Rugrats
I
stuff for like
definitely
everything
remember
to
the
hype
orange
that up?
VHS tape.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, I was looking into all that stuff, and all of that was cracking me up seeing that again. I was like, dude, I remember those orange VHSs. I think one of them was like when the gang went to like their version of Las Vegas. It's like
uh
that.
yeah. So like for maybe the people who aren't old men listening to this, like what were the orange VHS tapes? What is a VHS tape? Let's start there.
So a VHS tape was how we used to have to watch a movie before
In
there was
these stone
streaming,
ages.
before there was DVDs. You had to use a VHS. And not only did you have to use a VHS, but when the movie was over, you had to rewind it if you wanted to watch the movie again.
Yeah, it's like the very concept of it seems so ridiculous to me at this point. But at the time, it was all we had. You had like tape wound around like these big plastic things, and like yeah, like you said, like you had to like rewind and wind the tape to get to where you wanted to watch.
Craziest thing is if you brought
Which,
that tape back to a video store and you didn't rewind it, you'd get fined.
all
They'd
right,
charge you.
all right, all right.
The
But all right,
shit's
so I think we might be going a little too deep on what the VHS tapes were, but like, what were the orange ones specifically?
So the orange ones were like a collector's item almost, if you will, that was specifically for Rugrats episodes,
I think it was like
movies,
all Nickelodeon
or
things.
was it all Nickelodeon? I don't know if it was just
Yeah, I
centralized
feel
to
like I vaguely
Rugrats or
remember having like a Harriet the Spy orange VHS tape. I like
oh
maybe
man,
I'm
no,
just
there's
making that
a
up, but I think I had
no,
that.
it's entirely possible. I could see Nickelodeon having that be like a kitschy thing that would be unique to them, getting their little like orange VHS tapes.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what the orange VHS tapes
Yeah,
were. Nickelodeon used to release their movies on these bright orange VHS tapes, and that was pretty cool.
it was a pretty wild time back then. I've seen a few of them in thrift stores and stuff when I go and I'm searching for some cool collector's items. I've come across a few of them still, those old orange VHS tapes. I always get that hit with the blast from the past.
Yeah. Um. All right. So Where were we again?
We're diving into
Quite the
the
tangent.
Rugrats. So we're going to dive into the box office, but one last great bit of trivia for you, Jim, before we dive into the box office. I came
Yeah.
across
Yeah.
this one while I was doing my grand old research that I do for these movies. And coming across looking into Rugrats, one of the things that I found that cracked me up beyond belief was that the character of Dill was originally going to be Madonna, but the person that did Tommy, yeah, it was supposed to be Madonna was going to play this infant child
Like
that doesn't
do the
really talk.
voice of Dill.
Yeah, who basically just cries the entire movie and then
Right.
says Tommy at the end. Like it was, they were going to
Yeah.
probably pay Madonna an exorbitant amount of money. But Tara Strong, who is the voice actress that does Tommy,
Yeah.
did such a good impression of a baby crying that a woman in the booth who had just given birth started lactating.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What?
And so they had like what an insane piece of trivia to learn about such a movie that Tara Strong was just riffing on playing a child in the voice booth one day, and some woman who had
Yeah.
just given birth
And
in there
she
was checking
just
the
like
levels, and her
she
just
hit
shirt just goes wet with milk. Like,
yeah, she passed the test on a like DNA level.
right?
Like forget about whether kids in a movie theater think you're a baby. Like literal instinct and DNA
The
think you're a
literal
baby.
hormones thought that you were a
Yeah.
child in need of milk and just
Exactly.
instinctively reacted.
Yeah, that's pretty absurd. Is that
Like,
real? Where did you
yeah,
read that?
on IMDb.
Get out of here.
It was on IMDb. It's got to be true if it's on IMDb. The executives must have just been sitting there in the booth, just been like, "God damn it, baby, we're gonna be printing money with this one."
Yeah, Jesus, man. Yeah, imagine that's such a ridiculous story. I don't even know where to start.
Dude, the second I saw it, I was like, Jim is going to shit when he hears this one. Like,
It's like
it's so specifically absurd.
yeah, 100%, dude. It's I like yeah, wow.
Like, I don't even know if that's something I needed to know when I'm looking up Rugrats trivia. Like,
I mean, I feel like I needed to know. Like, I feel like and now that I know it, I feel like I needed to know. I don't know if I would have missed it before, but like,
Just absolute, just gold. When I saw that, I was like, that might be the best bit of trivia any movie has ever posted about anything. Like that's just absolute gloriousness right there.
yeah, it's. I mean, I think we're just gonna need to move on because it's really taken me a minute to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, if you sit here thinking about it for too long, you're just gonna fall down into that rabbit hole
Yeah, we're
of
just never gonna talk about anything else ever again.
he's like, I'll never be able to move on to anything other than lactating pregnant ladies. Like we've got to move on. We got to keep going.
Like, what else could make that happen? I just like,
That's what I'm saying. I'm like
yeah,
now, like it's crazy, like to be that good at playing a baby. Kudos to Tara Strong. That woman does not get enough credit.
yeah, and I mean, okay, so Madonna doesn't get the job. That's the long and short of
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
there.
And imagine being Madonna, like you lost out on playing a baby because somebody played a baby so well that she made other women lactate. Like you'd be like, I can't even fault it. Like,
Yeah, right. That's a real like tip your hat kind of moment. Like, what else can you do?
yeah, she's just like, she won this round. But all right, enough with the lactating women. On to the box office. Hit us with some numbers, Jim. Let's hear some box office rundown of the
Okay,
Rugrats movie.
so this movie was released November 20th, 1998. Gotta figure that's a holiday weekend, right?
That's got to be like the Thanksgiving weekend. Totally. That
Yeah, if or
was
like the weekend right before, so that it's out for that weekend.
yeah. This must have been when I saw it. Had to have been a birthday movie for me, right? That's 8 days before my birthday.
Yeah, I mean,
Must
yeah, I would guess. I mean, so do you remember seeing it in theaters before we get into the box office numbers?
It's true. We did not even dive into it. So I remember seeing it in theaters. I don't remember the, specifics about it. It had to have been a birthday, like releasing November 20th. My birthday's November 28th. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind that that wasn't like they took me for my birthday.
Yeah, no, that
Um,
does make sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
I remember that I saw this movie. I couldn't tell you anything other than that I know that I saw it because I was really excited leading up to it.
yeah,
But, like I don't remember them. I don't have any memory of actually being in a theater and watching it.
I can remember being there with like my parents, but I couldn't tell you the circumstances around it. But looking at the number, it all lines up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Total
All
birthday.
right, so released November 20th, 1998. $27.3 million opening weekend.
It's not
Uh,
terrible.
yeah, I mean it won the weekend, beating out the Will Smith vehicle, Enemy of the State,
Yeah.
which not
Did it really?
not my favorite movie. If we're gonna bring it up, I don't know if
Yeah.
this will come up later in the show, like
I
in the
mean,
series,
if there's a
but
Will Smith movie that wasn't going to take number one back in the height of Will Smith, it would definitely be Enemy of the State.
yeah, I mean not my favorite Will Smith movie. But I'm wondering that's got to be like the last movie for a long time where he didn't win, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. And that's sandwiched right in the middle of like when he was
So
huge. So
I
it's
wonder
surprising.
was that the opening weekend for Enemy of the State though? Maybe that's why. Maybe like
Possible.
it opened number 1 and then Rugrats just took the spot like a few weeks later, kind of a thing.
Sure. We'll have to
Well,
look.
anyway,
We'll have
it
to,
beat
yeah.
out Enemy of the State,
You're asking questions we
um,
can't answer.
and it finished its run with 100 million domestic and forty
So,
point four million worldwide, international
okay, so
for just a
worldwide of like
shade under 100,
140.
41 million worldwide.
Still though, 100 million domestic hit blockbuster status.
Yeah, I mean
Not
that's got to be pretty good for 1998, right?
not chat. Yeah, for 19,
It's
especially. I
like a
mean, and also
nice
for
mid
like,
budget movie.
yeah, and for the
And like
Rugrats movie, like,
how much do you think that movie cost them to make? It was like an hour and 15 minutes long. It's basically
couldn't have
just
been.
like
Yeah, it couldn't
three-ish
have been that
episodes of the
much.
show.
Yeah, it had to have been like what, like 30 million, give or take, 1998.
I'm not really sure. It just seems like it would be pretty easy for them. Like they already have a staff making
Making these
churning out
episodes.
episodes
Yeah,
of the show.
exactly. Yeah,
They
so it's
just
just
need to
like just
write
make
like
a
a pretty
longer
long
one.
one and call it a day.
Yeah.
And it's not that good. So it seems like they could have just like pumped that out pretty fast.
That is true. And speaking of not that good, when we love to ask our favorite movie critic what he thought of the movie, our good old man Roger Ebert gave this movie a whopping 2 stars. And one of my favorite things that I was looking into when I was reading his review for this
Yeah, give me
is
the highlights of his review. There's got to be something good in there.
so there were 2 things that stood out to me that really cracked me up about this. Was the first one is in this movie, for any of you at home that did not see this movie, Stu, Tommy's dad, is an inventor and he creates this wagon called the Reptar wagon, which is based off of Reptar, who is a knockoff Godzilla in their universe. And so the kids love this Reptar wagon and they use it to, ride around it and everything. And Ebert hilariously makes a comparison of the Reptar wagon to the Lost World Jurassic Park's SUVs from the previous year.
What comparison though? Like, what does he say about them? Like,
That's
is it
that
just like a quippy line, or
like there
is he
I
like
think there
measuring
because there's like a scene in
horsepower?
the
What?
movie when they're in like the wagon and it's like teetering on like a bridge or whatever and he like compares it to the Lost World scene where like their SUV is teetering over the cliff. And it's like,
Oh,
that is a big stretch, my friend, but
yeah.
okay.
You might be thinking about it a little too much, Ebert. It just
Like, it's the Rugrats movie, man. Like, what are you doing comparing it to anything?
yeah.
And then he also uses the Rugrats movie and his review to take a swipe at the water boy for no reason whatsoever.
The
Like,
Adam Sandler movie? What is
yeah.
it?
Yeah. So the whole movie, I mean, the whole review is just him, talking about Rugrats. Obviously, it's what you expect. He's like, it's a kid's movie. If you're a kid, you get your enjoyment out of it. And
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, if you're an adult getting any enjoyment of it, he's like, I think I could figure that you're probably someone who would find the Water Boy hilarious. It was like, well, damn, dude, this is a cheap shot out of nowhere.
Jeez. Ebert's like trying to get you to question your life while reading this review.
Like he
God
just out
damn.
of nowhere just takes a shot at the Water Boy. It's like he was like, man, the water boy really stung him something fierce.
Yeah, he must have
If
hated it.
if he's using the Rugrats movie to take a shot at him.
But yeah, like he's just doing this really cool thing where he's basically saying if you're an adult and you like this, you're an idiot. But the way he's calling you an idiot is by saying you would like the water boy. So he's like dragging the water boy at the same time. It's like really nuanced by Ebert. Real
Yeah,
well, no,
he's
I
really
shouldn't say nuanced. It's actually pretty overt. But
hitting a lot of layers in that
yeah,
assault.
right, exactly. I like his reviews got like a theme.
True. Now, like I'm curious as if we go into more reviews in the 90s, like as we watch more of these movies, as if he'll take any more shots at the water boy.
Oh yeah, if it's like a running gag that he
Yeah,
takes
or
it
any
as.
or any other Adam Sandler vehicle, if like maybe that's just like a punching bag for him.
Yeah, this movie gets 4 stars because it's the exact opposite of the Water Boy.
You come to find out that on his tombstone it just reads like still hated the water boy.
Yeah. What did you think of this movie? I think we've had enough pomp and circumstance here. Let's get into the nitty gritty. What did you like about this movie? What did you not like about this movie?
So obviously what I like about the movie is that it's short.
That's a good
It's
one. I second
it's
that.
it definitely does not wear out its welcome and moves, which is definitely what you want out of a movie like this because it is not very good.
Yeah, I
Like
kind of
it's
like I hated it.
like I don't know if I hated it outright, but it definitely was something that I was like, I will never want to watch this ever again.
I remember liking it as a kid, and now I watched it and I'm like, man, what the hell was I thinking? Like, there's like
Exactly.
nothing even happening in this movie.
Same. I got the enjoyment that I got out of this movie felt more that it was just it felt more nostalgia, that it was just me enjoying that I was remembering parts of the movie from when I saw it as a kid. And not so much that I was like, yeah, this was a fun, enjoyable movie. I remember why I liked this as a kid. It was more like, damn, I was an idiot as a kid, man. Like we'd like it fucking anything.
Yeah, I just like it's weird because I didn't remember anything about it. I didn't remember anything that happened in it. I have some memories like more so of the second one, like Rugrats in Paris.
Mm.
I couldn't have told you what happened in this movie before I watched it. I don't remember a single thing about it, and I wonder if that's because it was terrible. like,
It's fair.
like there was just nothing memorable about
Yeah.
it at all.
The two things that I remembered from it was the Reptar wagon and the absolutely horrific scene of all of the babies like singing to them when like they want to bring
Oh
Dill
yeah,
back to the hospital.
yeah,
That
right,
scene
right.
was absolutely horrific.
It was yes, it was nightmare inducing.
Yeah. And there's one thing that really needs to be brought up that I don't know how it's never been brought up. I mean, it's probably never been brought up because who's really like going back to the Rugrats movie and really dissecting it. But I don't know if you noticed this, and I don't know if I was crazy for noticing it, but in the scene, with all the babies, there's both white and black babies in there. And
Yeah.
every time it showed a black baby, it had very
Oh my
pronounced
god, where are you
lips.
going with this?
Did you not notice this when it was going on? It always had very pronounced, like actual drawn lips. And then whenever you saw a white
Oh.
baby, it had no drawn lips. It was just the mouth. And
Huh.
I'm watching it and I'm
I
like,
didn't even pay attention to that.
yeah, dude, I picked up on it like almost instant because like at first it happened and I was like, well, wait a minute. And like I kept watching, and then it happened again, like every time it cut back to the baby, and I had to keep going back, and I'm like, why did they do that? Why? I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's pretty wild.
I was like,
I'm trying
no,
to think were the carrot like was Susie like that too?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I think it was just in that
Huh.
one scene that it was really noticeable. And I was like, why? I felt like I was Matt Stone and Trey Parker in like basketball when they're just like,
Yeah,
ah.
it's like oh man, the 90s got another one.
And I'm just like, that was a choice.
Right, exactly. Like somebody did that. Yeah.
Yeah, like
like
someone was
we're
like,
like this
that's
is
the
a
move.
perfectly okay thing for me to do.
That's a move that we should make. And it was like, I don't think you should. But they made it. And then it finishes in a rainbow swirl of all of the babies peeing into the air, and you're like, yeah, this is a movie.
Yeah, and then Tommy like buys a baby. like
Yeah,
like in his mind, I know, he's like buying the baby. Like it's he's giving the doctor like the little chocolate coin. It's very, very silly.
it's a very, very silly movie. I will give it credit for that at times though, that like the parts that I did enjoy the most are where it was like as absolutely stupid and ridiculous as possible. Like when they come into the hospital and there's like all the different birthing rooms, but it's not just like regular birthing rooms. It was like there was like a tropical oasis room that one girl
Yeah,
was giving birth
like
in,
Doctor Lipschitz, and
yeah,
he's a
Dr.
total quack.
Lipschitz.
he's got like he's got like all kinds of dumb shit going on.
Yeah,
Like the old country room.
like he's such a weird doctor, and like freaking the mom just like is so bought into it.
Yeah, right. Oh, dude, that's something that I didn't remember about the show from when I was a kid. That Dee Dee's parents are like old European Jews.
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Dude, who can forget the Rugrats Hanukkah special, man? Come
Yeah.
on.
Well, right. Now that you mentioned the Hanukkah special, of
Yeah.
course I remember that. Yeah.
We learned all about the Maccabees. Yeah, but yeah, I love when they show up and he really is just so like Eastern European, like
Yeah,
whenever like
so like
Boris.
that was a thing that I didn't that I kind of picked up on more as an adult, and then yeah, of course they open the old country room is one of the crazy Dr. Lipschitz rooms, and there's like people in there like plowing fields.
Yeah. They're just like giving birth on like a farm. It's like, what is this movie? So like I give them credit because some of those like adult gags are like they got some of them got me. Like one line of dialogue stuck with me in this movie that had me dying and I was like I told Heather she watched it with me. I was like, we gotta go back. I gotta hear that line again. Like there's no way they just said that. And it's right after like they find out that the kids were taken, and Dee Dee comes home and she's like, I can't believe you left your kids with your father. The man slept through Pearl Harbor. And
Oh
then
yeah.
and then Grandpa's like, I sounded the alarm as soon as I could. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Are
That
you
was pretty
implying that
good.
Pearl Harbor was like Grandpa's fault because he slept through sounding the
That's
alarm?
exactly what they were saying. Yeah. All right, so yeah, you're right. There was a lot more adult stuff that I wasn't really paying attention to, but it was
It's
definitely
just
there.
like bits of lines and humor that just like goes over you that you don't even realize, and you're just like, this movie is really fucking silly. One of the other ones that like I didn't pick up on that goes not like way deep, but is also a little bit heavier than I would expect to see in a Rugrats movie is Stu basically dealing with the crippling idea that he's like a failure.
Oh yeah, that was yeah. I, it's the kind of thing like you don't ever think about how Stu makes money when you're a kid. And
Uh,
then like this movie, like when you're an adult, you're like, oh my god, Stu, you can't just invent toys in your basement, man. You need health insurance.
Then every time
What are
like
you doing?
every time his brother comes over and his brother's just giving him the business, like he's like, "When are you gonna get your life in order?" It's like
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Right, like he was just a total loser. Yeah, I did not remember that part.
Yeah.
But
So
that was
like,
like it was such a weird thing to put in the movie too, because it kind of paid off, I guess, but not really. Like it was just kind of like thrown in there.
well, just for it to be like he's the one that found the kids, even though it was kind of his fault in the first place that they're like even went missing.
Yeah, right. Like they like just left them, and then yeah, of course it was his fault, dude. He was watching everybody's kids. Like he
Also, did
should
you
go to
pick up?
he should go to jail at the end of that movie and
Yeah, yeah.
not get redemption. What is that was nuts.
Fucking Stu. Did you also pick up on like the random like celebrity voice actors in it too?
Yeah,
Like
I noticed. I think I noticed David
David
Spade
Spade.
as
Yeah.
like
Like what is
the park ranger guy.
yeah.
I didn't
I'm like
notice anybody else though. Who else did you pick up
so
on?
that one was David Spade. The news anchor was fuck, what's his name? Um he was in Clue, he was Pennywise.
Tim
Um
Curry.
yeah, Tim Curry. Yeah, Tim Curry was the news anchor. It was like, who are these just random people? Like who did these two guys owe favors to that they just
That
got
makes
for?
sense because didn't Tim Curry do like other Nickelodeon shows too? Wasn't he in like Wild
Yeah,
Thornberries?
well, yeah, he was Nigel Thornberry. But that one I get because like Nigel Thornberry is one of the main characters. Like,
Well, yeah, it's just like I don't know. He seems like he did some voice work for Nickelodeon back in the day. Like they probably called him for the Wild Thornberries because they're like, "Hey, you were pretty good on that thing we asked you to do on Rugrats."
he is pretty great as Nigel Thornberry. I will give that to him.
Yeah, no, but the only one I noticed was David Spade, and I did like a double take. I was like, "Is that David Spade?" Like playing
Yeah,
that
well, he has a
main
very
park
like
ranger.
recognizable voice too.
Yeah, that's true. That character was pretty great too. He was
Yeah,
like he was trying to act all cool in the beginning to the new girl and like show off a little bit, and then he just gets like totally freaked out by the dragon.
yeah, dude, that's another like they just bring in like the random Russian circus and like the monkeys getting loose.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about. I
Like
mean, I guess the monkeys were kind of fun.
like what a random subplot to throw in there just to give some opposition for the kids when they're like in the woods. Like they're like, all right, what
Yeah,
if they come up
which
against these Russian monkeys?
who steal the baby and bring
Yeah.
him into like a cave somewhere.
Yeah, it's like it's so absurd. It's such a silly movie. It's such a silly movie. I think one of the other things that's also that you could see in this one that you can tell is very much in its infancy still is that blend of hand-drawn animation with CGI animated scenes.
Yeah, which is
Like
it's interesting because it's very different in Pokemon than it was in Rugrats. Like you could tell Rugrats was like a different kind of animation. Yeah.
like when like you'd go from like 2D and then they'd be in the Reptar wagon as it would come flying out and it would go into this weird looking CGI animation as it's like flying towards the into the woods and you're just like man you could tell that they had like just like started working on
Right,
this
it
like
like hasn't aged well.
yeah, yeah, you're just like, my God, like the early stages of that did not look good whatsoever.
I don't know. I don't really have a lot left to say about Rugrats.
Yeah, I
It was
mean,
just kind of terrible. I didn't really like it. Not a lot happened.
how much that you could really, really dive into on that one. The best thing, thankfully, is that it was short and mercifully short.
Yeah, but it somehow made like an 80, what was it? Like
I think it's
an
like
hour and
80,
like
yeah,
11 minutes.
feel much longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, it made like a 75-minute movie feel like an hour and a half, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's the Rugrats for you. All right, final ranking for the Rugrats movie, Jim. What do you got?
I don't know. Let's just stick with what Ebert gave it. I'll give it a 2.
Well,
Do you have yours?
I'm going to echo that sentiment, and I'm also going to give it a 2, which gives the Rugrats a final score of 4 out of 10.
That still seems high. That's that still
Which
seems a little high, but I guess it's like we're locked in. We're locked in.
we're locked in now. So if we go now to the rankings, it's now in dead last behind the Lost
Good.
World
It's I think it's gonna be tough to beat for a little bit.
with a 4 out of 10. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Let's see, will the Pokemon movie fall behind the Rugrats movie,
And
or
what did the Lost World get again?
the Lost World? We gave a 7.5. So a big,
Okay, yeah. All right, yeah,
big,
that's all right.
big jump,
It's
big
fine.
jump.
4 is probably still a little high, but it's fine.
4 might be on the higher side, but we could take that. That one's all right. 4 out of 10 for the Rugrats movie. But now we go into the second game in our doubleheader here. We turn now to our second animated flick, Pokemon, the first movie, the first theatrical release in the epic Pokemon franchise. Jim, how big of a Pokemon fan were you in the 90s?
I mean, like it was like a way of life. You know what I mean? You
That
played all
is.
the Game Boy games, you watched the show, you collected the cards. Like it was just a fact of life.
Yeah,
it
I think
wasn't a thing you were into. It was just a really popular fad that everyone did.
think you would be hard pressed to find a kid who grew up in the 90s that wasn't obsessed with Pokemon.
Yeah, and I mean it was just for good reason, you know? Like how
Yeah.
think about how great it was like learning all like the cheats in the Game Boy game with your
Oh
friends and
yeah,
like
dude.
trading Pokemon back and forth.
Which one was it? Pokemon Red that had like the rare candy cheat, and
Yeah, where
like
you had to fight that like
yeah,
weird
you
like
fight the
number
missing
sign
number.
guy.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just like a
yeah.
QR code that you fought.
And then you had to run away. And I don't know if this is true or not because I was too afraid to do it. But apparently, if you killed that thing, it like broke your whole game like forever. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's
if that
right.
was just like a myth. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever tested it to find out.
I certainly didn't have the courage.
True, but yeah, Pokemon was everywhere. You had your trading cards, you had the video games, you had the television show. Everyone had the what was it, the Game Boy adapters so that they could trade Pokemon with each other because it was the only way to get all of the Pokemon in the game. Like it was
Yeah.
absolutely a way of life that still goes to this day. Like my nephews are getting to that point now where they love Pokemon
Yeah, I mean it's only more popular than it used to
now.
be.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
it's crazy how popular it still remains to this day, and how lasting of an impact it has on people. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have a Pokemon tattoo. Yeah, the last thing, I mean, it's a haunter, ghost Pokemon. Got to keep it evil. Got to keep it dark.
Yeah, and like I think you're maybe like the fifth person I know that has a Pokemon tattoo.
Yeah, people love getting Pokemon. I see people with Pokemon tattoos so many places that I go all the time. I think it's just from our generation onward. I think you'll be hard pressed from our generation to kids today to
Yeah.
not find a kid that wasn't into Pokemon at one point in their life.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's like a
And
rite
with
of
all of that
passage now.
cultural impact, there is only one, the first movie,
This is true. Yeah. We got in at
which
the
came
start.
out
We got in at the
November 10th.
ground level.
Yeah, right. So it released November 10th, 1999, just about a year after Rugrats.
Okay.
Um, on a Wednesday. That's okay. I don't think there's a holiday November 10th, but a Wednesday, okay. making $10 million, which for a Wednesday is pretty insane.
For a
Like
Wednesday.
even today, if a movie made $10 million on a Wednesday, I'd be
Yeah,
like,
like
"Oh,
that's
that's gonna
pretty.
make a lot of money."
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
The day is known as Poke Flu because of all the kids that stayed home sick from school to see the film.
That's a good piece of trivia right there. Do
It's
you
the
remember?
biggest opening. No, go
Do
ahead.
you remember? Do you remember seeing it in theaters? Do you think you went
I
on
mean,
Do you think you went on Poke Flu Day?
maybe I don't really know. It's like days of the week are hard as an adult, and I wasn't really great at them when I was like 8. So,
This is a
um,
movie. We were talking about it before with Rugrats, where we couldn't remember specifics, but this is a movie that I know for certain that I did see on my birthday. This was my birthday movie that year, was going to see the Pokemon movie because obviously, being a huge Pokemon fan, this movie was like fucking, this was Christmas all rolled into one right there. You were like,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
every
yeah.
holiday. Let's roll, baby.
I remember being super excited for this, and I definitely remember going to the theater to see it, and I remember a lot about the movie. And I don't think I had seen it since theaters.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, probably as
Um,
a kid, I'm sure I've seen it. Like I probably had the VHS.
Going off of memory, I'm pretty sure that we were like maybe 10 or 15 minutes late to the movie because I did not remember anything that happened with Mewtwo in the beginning. Like the
That's
first
so
5
long.
minutes, I was seriously like, did I turn on the wrong movie? Like, what am I watching right now? And
Well, it was weird watching it this time because the DVD release, at least that I have for it, doesn't have the short film that was played before it in the theater, which was like that like Togepi like picnic
oh, like
safari.
the one where they go. Wait, what's the one where they go on vacation? Wasn't that before the first movie? Like
Or it might
Hot
have been that one.
Springs.
It's I don't remember the specifics of it, but I know it's one where like they're all like hanging out and like Togepi just starts like running off to go do some bullshit and like they're like, "No, Togepi, what are you doing? You crazy?" And I can't remember if it was like a beach setting or like a safari setting
Oh
or
yeah, there might
something.
have been a beach one. Yeah,
Yeah, it was something
I
like
know
that.
what you're talking about though. They used to
Yeah.
do like the short films and before each movie. Yeah,
Yeah. And that wasn't on the DVD. So that I was like, wow, you're just gonna get rid of that like incredible short film right there?
yeah. But has the whole Mewtwo thing always been there?
Yes.
Oh my god, I did not remember that at all. I was seriously like checking to see if I was watching the right thing, and then that whole like opening thing, Mewtwo's like origin story ended, and it was like Mewtwo Strikes Back, and I was like, wait, is this called like what movie is Mewtwo Strikes Back? This is what I want to watch. Like,
I know they
so
have so many different titles and subtitles for it and everything.
yeah,
You could
because
never get like,
my memory of that movie is the first thing that happens is the Dragonite like delivers the mail. Like that's the
yeah,
only thing I remember.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if we just showed up late to the theater, or if I just don't remember that beginning part. I'm not really sure.
It's a Mandela effect, man.
Yeah, right.
All
But
right, anyway, hit me some more, hit me with some more box office numbers.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got on a tangent there.
I know we always go into our
So
sidetracks right there.
biggest opening for an animated film made by Warner Brothers.
Really,
It
Jesus.
opened to
They're
31 million
damn. They're
for the
fucking
weekend, and then since it opened on a Wednesday, it had a $50 million 5 day opening.
it's pretty good for an animated movie that
Yeah, that's
wasn't made
really
by
good,
like
man.
Disney or something.
100%. And then it finished with 172 million total. It's 85 domestic and 77 international. So,
That's not
since
bad
this
at
is
all.
a two-part episode, it crushed the Rugrats at the box office.
Yeah,
Like
it
top
made the
just
Rugrats
destroyed
movie
it
its
in every
bitch.
way imaginable.
The Rugrats crawled so that Pokemon could run. That's
Well,
crazy.
I guess Rugrats made more money domestically by about 15 million, but Pokemon really killed it international,
It's
so it made
Pokemon
a
really
bunch.
brought the heat internationally. But I guess that makes sense. The Rugrats is more of a domestic property, whereas Pokemon
Yeah.
is that global reach that we were talking about. And one specific huge reaching that Pokemon did that I remember that I wish I still had and never got rid of as a kid was, I wonder if you remember these, Jim, was
Mhm.
the tie-in for the film where they were selling the gold-plated Pokemon cards at Burger King.
Oh yeah, I definitely remember those.
Remember
Yeah,
those? Remember those
I
things?
do.
Dude, I remember like every other kid, you were just running to Burger Kings all over Long Island trying to collect. I think it was like six different ones,
Oh, I
probably.
have no idea.
I
I
don't
just
remember
remember having a
exactly.
couple of them, and
Yeah,
they
I
were
remember.
pretty
I
pricey.
think there was like five or six of them, and you would just be going all. You had your parents driving you all over, just trying to hit all the Burger Kings in hopes that you can get all of them.
Yeah,
I wish I still hold on to them. Those things, those were golden,
yeah.
absolutely
Who
golden.
know? Who the hell knows what happens to the ones I had? But
Yeah,
I
they're
definitely had
probably
a few back in the day.
rotting at the bottom of a box in a thrift store somewhere. But one of the things I
Yeah,
was
or just like
reading,
in a garbage dump.
yeah, or in a
That's
car, yeah,
probably
dude,
that's where my
yeah,
money is.
just at the dump. It's probably a lot of gold at the dump. Pokemon
Yeah,
gold.
I mean they
I was
weren't real gold, right? They're
no,
still
no,
like
there's no way. Imagine
imagine
like they
Burger
just
King was giving out like 6 ounces of gold with every Happy Meal.
they just like never told you it was real gold, so everyone just assumed it was fake.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
bold. That'd be bold. Almost as bold as Warner Brothers' pitch for the English dubbed version of this movie. So another great little tidbit of trivia that I learned while I
Yeah,
was
hit me with
looking
it.
up research about this movie. Why don't you take a gander at a guess of which actor Warner Brothers had in mind to dub Ash's lines for the English release of this movie. The audacity that these people had to think they could secure an actor of this caliber.
1999, right?
Yes,
And it's
was in his
Ash.
golden boy phase right about now.
It's
I'll give
not
you another. I'll
Leo,
give
is it?
it is Leo.
No
It
way,
is
it's Leo.
Leonardo DiCaprio,
The
which
Golden
is
Boy.
yeah,
That's what
the
I jumped
golden
to.
boy.
Yeah.
Our last
I
episode,
was gonna originally say Haley Joel Osment.
but I think we're about. Oh yeah, well, what Sixth Sense was 1999, so this could have been his year.
Yeah. What's the point of that? I don't understand. Why would they get Leo to?
I had no idea, no idea in
I
what
just wanted him to
world.
sound like how he sounded in the cartoon dub. I don't
Yeah,
know. Like,
like I don't know in what world they thought we should get Leonardo DiCaprio to dub Ash's lines. But I would like to visit that alternate universe and watch that version of this movie because that sounds fucking hilarious.
yeah,
Also, the
it's
audacity of thinking that Leonardo DiCaprio's first movie after Titanic would be the English dubbed Pokemon movie. Just very,
yeah,
very
right.
bold on Warner
He's
Brothers'
like the
part.
biggest star in the world at this
Yeah.
point.
Like he's on all the Teen Beat magazines at
Yeah.
this point. Like he's never been bigger. And they're like, Leo, we got a role for you. Well, it's not
Yeah,
really a role,
it's
it's a voice role.
yeah,
Pokemon.
we need you to play Ash Ketchum. Yeah, the bumbling kid who like who trains a little yellow rat. That's the one. Yep.
Absolute gold right there. Absolute gold right there. But all right, as always, let's dive into the movie. Jim, what worked? What didn't work for you with the Pokemon movie?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because I watched it like after Rugrats, but I thought it was so good. I was so into it. The opening scene was like the whole Mewtwo origin story was awesome. I like really liked that part where like it just like it showed like such growth for him and like that little like 5 minute vignette. And then by the end of it, it's like, all right, cool. I know who the villain is, which is another plus over Rugrats. There was no villain in fucking Rugrats. It was just like maybe kind of like a wolf in the forest. Not nearly as cool as Mewtwo was. um, yeah.
That
So
did
and then like I thought that like it was just like the plot moved very nicely. Like it got to the places it needed to get to. It was like it flowed really well. And like everybody you met along the way like really leaned into the themes of the movie. Like those two Pokemon trainer guys were such assholes. The guys who go to New Island with them.
oh yeah, the two that come across with them.
Yeah, like they needed to learn Ash's lesson just as much as Mewtwo needed to learn it. You know what I
It
mean? Like
was a lesson for everybody.
yeah, and then I mean, it was cool. It had like some nice little action set pieces. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie.
I guess I did not have the luxury of watching it right after the Rugrats movie, so I went in on this one fresh, and I was totally on board with you as well with that opening scene, and then they just fly by it so quickly. Like when Giovanni shows up and he's just like, "Come with me, man," like, and I'll show you.
Yeah,
And then like he's with them and they're like murking Pokemon. I'm like, all right, dope. So like Ash is gonna have to stop them and like Mewtwo's gonna like figure out like
yeah,
who he's working for is. And then that happens in 5 minutes without Ash. Mewtwo's just like, what have I done? And Giovanni's like, you work for me, boy. And then he just like dips out and then
yeah.
just starts
Mewtwo
like a
Mewtwo had
fighting
a whole
competition.
arc in that like 10 minutes
Yeah.
in that ten
They
minute opening.
they did a whole movie right there in that 10 minute, just breeze through it. I was like, no, that's the movie right there. Like, where are you going? And they just
Yeah,
breeze right through that to just do what they always do is just like the Pokemon battle one. And it's also weird that like it was just weird to me that Mewtwo was just like, I'm gonna make them all pay, and then just puts on like a Pokemon competition,
yeah. Well, his plan, yeah,
essentially.
I'm not really sure what his plan was. Like, I got where I understood that he was trying to take over the world. Check, makes sense, right? Um,
But then he
where
just
he lost
becomes
me
like,
was he started like cloning Pokemon. I didn't
yeah,
understand that part, like just to prove that clones are stronger, I guess, because like
yeah.
he's a clone. I don't know.
But like he could have just wrecked house and proved that. Well, it's just funny that like his plan was like I'm gonna take over the world, but then he just became like the mysterious runner of the competition at this like
Yeah,
random castle for a while. And it was like, why are you doing like that's such a random thing?
yeah, and like right around this part of the movie, like the beginning when they get their invitation and stuff, all I could think about was how terrible a world it would be if I had to live in it with Pokemon trainers. You know what I mean? Like all the Pokemon trainers were so the worst people in the
Yeah,
world.
like every
Like
single one you meet is just a dick.
yeah, like they get to the harbor and they're like, all right guys, there's like a really bad storm coming, like everybody needs to be safe and like go inside and just hang out for a few hours and like let the storm pass. And the Pokemon trainers are all immediately like, no way. Like,
Like,
this is
fuck that
bullshit,
noise.
we
We're gonna
gotta
get
get,
out
yeah,
there.
we gotta get to this island immediately. Like it's like, guys, relax.
Right? Like it's
Like
not gonna kill you to wait a night. Like
yeah. Like, what is going on over there? There's some guy who says he's the best, so you need to go fight him. Like, what is your
he's like, I
problem,
need to
dude?
fight him now.
Grow up.
Well,
Like,
even like the first one you come across, like when we first see Ash and them, and they're just having like a nice picnic and relaxing, and the one guy just
yeah.
like the bug trainer just runs up and he's like, "Hey Ash, fight me, you punk!" Like
Yeah, it's
I'd
like
be like, "God, can I get a
Jesus.
second here?"
Yeah. I'm trying to have lunch with my friends.
Right? Just trying to
But
fucking relax here, guy.
yeah. So yeah, and like like the one guy like whips out his Gyarados and he's like riding his
Yeah, across
Gyarados
the
like into the
store.
storm. It's like, dude, you gotta just chill, man. Everything's gonna be okay.
I know they're so intense for like
Yeah.
absolutely no reason. Like,
Yeah, and then they get there, right? And they like and like there's that cool scene where they like walk into the really like picturesque like lobby kind of place and like
yeah,
everybody's Pokemon are all like ganged up in the pools. And like, Mewtwo comes out and starts doing his shtick. He's like, yeah, like all your Pokemon are slaves, and like you guys are like horrible for doing that to them, and they're horrible for letting you. And then the one guy's response is like, well, you're just a Pokemon. I'm just gonna catch you. It's like, dude, I think you might be contributing to the problem here.
yeah, right.
Like,
And also like I love how his response to like meeting a Pokemon that can speak is like to immediately ignore him and be like, "Well, I'm just gonna catch you, Pokemon." Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like you're like less than me, dude. I can catch you in this little ball, and that's the
but
end of this conversation. Like, let's just do it.
like fucking Mewtwo shows up and he's like, he just speaks as eloquently as you've ever heard anyone speak ever, and they're just like, "Well, fuck you, guy. I'm gonna catch you."
Yeah, you're just a Pokemon. That means I can catch you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and I think a lot of this too that is probably makes it like a factor that we're talking about is how much it was changed from like in the dub, I imagine. Like I would be interested to see what like the Japanese version of this movie is with like their subtitles and everything and see what their
Oh, you know
like
what? That's actually a really good point.
because like I
That's a really
wonder
good
how
point.
much in that dubbed is changed for American audiences and how much of that in there that we are like laughing and making fun of is all because some stupid studio exec was like, "Meh, see, like he's gonna be like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna catch the Pokemon, right?" Like,
No, but the cool thing is that it really worked for me. Like I thought the Pokemon trainers were jerks, and I think that's kind of the point. Like I'm supposed to be like, yeah, you guys are jerks. Like cut it out.
it's true.
And
It is possible. It's definitely
like
possible.
Mewtwo and these jerks need to meet Ash in the middle. That's like what this movie is about to me. Like,
Finding that balance. Well, that's another weird thing is that like the moral of the story at the end kind of is like fighting is bad, but like the whole point of Pokemon is to like fight other Pokemon trainers.
yeah.
So
I
it's
mean
like,
the moral of the story was oh shit, I just had it. Fuck.
you know what it
Wait,
really, yeah, and I mean really it what it boils down to is for Mewtwo, it's understanding that just that not all humans are capable of like torturing and harming and looking at Pokemon in the way that he expects them all to. There are people like Ash who have these bonds with these Pokemon, and they're more like, co-workers than
yeah, and
like
like
where he's
friends,
like, you
but
work for me. Like they have a
it's also like
bond.
he needs to get to this, and I remember what I was gonna say now. Like he needs to get to this "we're not so different, you and I" place. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's not about whether I'm a super strong clone and you're some like jerk off kid who can't win the Pokemon League. That's not the point. Like the point is that we're here now and we can be cool to each other. Like it's not about where we're from. It's like we're not so
Sounds
different. Let's just be cool to each other.
sounds like a very Bill and Ted. Why can't
Yeah.
we all just be cool to each other?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bill and Ted's a good way to put it.
That's true. But it was a much better movie than
Yeah,
the Rugrats, that's for sure.
I mean the last half of it, like the last like 45 minutes, like I understood what was happening and why it was happening and what people's goals were. You know what I mean? Like and then it played out really cool. Like again with like a lot of like fun action. So, yeah, it felt like a movie whereas
Like an
Rugrats
actual
did not.
complete movie. And that
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Pokemon movie would be complete without that just absolute banger of an ending with Ash turning to stone and the tears of the Pokemon bringing him back to life.
Yeah, and dude, you know what? You know what the opening of this episode should be?
What?
The the like acoustic guitar song that starts playing
Oh, that plays like
like
when he's
when Ash like comes up and all the Pokemon are like having like slap fights with each other. And like this just like acoustic guitar song starts playing and the guy's like, we're brothers, we gotta be
Yes.
brothers.
Yes, dude. When that started playing, I was like, what is even happening right now?
Yeah, it was so ridiculous. So you got to make that the opening of the thing. That would be like it's just people need to hear it.
Yes, if you haven't heard that song, you should immediately download it to your Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you listen to your jams, because that's a tasty jam right there for you.
Ash's Charizard's fight was pretty cool. Like especially when he fought the other Charizard and they're like flying around and he gets body slammed.
It was funny, like seeing them come up with like the weird little visual things that they would put on the Pokemon so you can tell it was like the clone one and not like the actual one.
Yeah, and then they just like kind of phoned it in on that at some point.
Yeah, and for some of them, like it was a non-entity, like they didn't do anything, and then for
For
other ones,
like
it would
most of
be,
them, when
yeah.
they were like when Mewtwo like blocked out their special abilities and they could only like punch each other, I couldn't tell you who was who for like all of that whole part. It
Just
was, and I think again, I think that was kind of the point. Like nobody wins. You know what I mean? You're not rooting for anybody here.
brother hits brother, we all lose.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I'm pretty sure somebody says that exact line in the movie. Like
I would not be fucking shocked.
which it's like very on the nose in that
Yeah.
like classic anime way.
I will say there was definitely a lot more existentialism in this movie than I thought I would get in a Pokemon movie.
Yeah. And then I mean the only other thing is Team Rocket's always great. Team Rocket's hysterical, always
Always,
clever.
always
Their whole
entertaining.
their whole slapstick humor. I found those jokes way better than the like in adult jokes in Rugrats, like where it's just like Meowth making like a stupid pun.
Yeah, where they're just being like big dumb idiots.
Yeah, there's one part where Meowth's talking to his clone, and he's like, "You, Meowth, are not gonna hit me, Meowth, with that
Yeah.
claw." So choice, like so good.
And you just know someone who was sitting there writing was just like, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
That was gonna hit.
yeah, and he has lines like that like throughout the whole movie. Like he's just saying like dumb jokes the whole time.
That's a line that reminds me like immediately of like the Scott Pilgrim line where he's like, first you were a vegan, now you will be gone. It's like
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see the comparison there.
just
So
very
yeah,
just
and man, I think that's all I got for Pokemon.
yeah, what more is there to say? All right, final rating for the Pokemon movie
Uh, out of five, right?
out of five.
I'm gonna give it 3
Ooh,
and
three.
a half.
3.5. My
Yeah,
God,
I'm gonna go 3.
you're going high.
No
Three.
half, no half, just
No
3.
half, no half, just three. All right, three from Jim. And I know while I said that this was a more enjoyable movie for me than the Rugrats movie, I still am going to give this movie also 2 stars because it's not a movie that I can ever really see myself at the end of the day ever wanting to watch again. Like it was fun in the moment at times, but it was
Yeah,
never anything where I was like completely and fully engaged. So it definitely still felt like a 2 star for me.
that's fair.
So that
I think this is gonna be like a second screen mainstay for me going forward. I had to rent it on YouTube, so I have it for 4 more weeks, and I think I'm gonna watch it a lot in those 4 weeks.
really get your money's worth in
Yeah,
those
I
four
think so.
weeks
I'm gonna really
on that
strike out that
renting.
3.99.
Dude, what a world we live in now where you can rent movies on YouTube. So crazy. All right, so that brings us to a total score of 5, which makes the Rugrats movie still the loser in tonight's drawing.
Yeah, which again is fair. I think what I'm learning about the whole rating system as we go on is that I'm gonna be pretty unhappy with it as it goes on. Like we're
Yeah,
gonna run into some real conundrums here where we're gonna be giving like there's gonna be things that are very different in terms of quality that end up very close together in terms of rating.
in terms of rating. But that's kind of like the fun of it. It's going to be funny when we get
Yeah,
to those
no,
and we
right,
both rage to the sky at what we've done.
right. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Might be a better way to
Exactly.
say it.
Yeah. But Pokemon the movie with a 5 sitting right in the middle of the heap right there at the average rating with a 5. So, not a terrible spot to be in.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
question will be as we go forward, will what will be the new lowest hitter? What's going to be our first one? Is anything going to hit that low that we're going to
And
go
this is
through?
what I mean. Is like if Rugrats gets a 4, like there's gonna be stuff that's way like probably not necessarily worse that we give lower scores. That's what I think is gonna happen. But I think there will be a 1 out there. I don't really know what's coming up next, but
Oh no, I think there will definitely as we get I think especially once we get to like the mid 2000s when you me and all the guys used to go see every movie under the sun
right,
together.
I didn't like
I
it.
think
Yeah,
we're definitely going to start getting some because we went and saw some shit in
I
those
think
days.
I think the worst ones will be like when we get into like 2018, 2019 range.
Well, that's
Because
that's a long
I
ways
feel like
down
there's
the
been
road.
a lot of bad movies in 2018 and 2019. Maybe it's just that I'm just like they're more recent, so I remember them.
They
But
sit more in there. Yeah. No, but yeah, well, I'm sure we're definitely going to get into there and we're going to get to some clunkers that will be just like torture to
yeah,
sit through.
is there gonna be another big gap? Like this one had a year in between.
No, so there won't. Well, so the year gap for this one was mostly because neither of these movies on their own felt like they would be full
Oh,
episode worth.
okay.
So
You
we
just
skipped.
bunched them together because they were
Yeah.
like
So we
animated and
bunched them together to
short.
kind of like give us a full episode's worth that we felt like of it because we're not getting a full episode out of the Rugrats movie.
No, probably not.
Yeah. So it was good to condense these two together. So in the next one, we'll actually be taking a step back a few months, still in 1999, but going back a few months to another movie. Um, as we'll continue on. So I don't think from now there'll be any more huge gaps. I think once now that we got into 1999 and especially into the 2000s when like we got old enough where we could go to the movies consistently, I was hitting a lot more movies in theaters on a pretty
Yeah.
average,
Yeah,
consistent
I guess
basis.
that's true. Like we're only a couple years away from us doing that like pretty regularly, right?
Yeah, like 2004 is right around the corner on that one, especially when it's like in the late 90s and early 2000s we were catching like maybe 2 to 3 a year. So we'll
Yeah.
catch up to like that point pretty quickly. We got the next movie is going to be another big one. So while in these early episodes, we didn't see a lot of movies in theaters. Every time we did see a movie, it's a banger. It was a big, huge, colossal hype machine. And there is no bigger franchise probably than this next movie. Any ideas? Any guesses, Jim?
I think I know what it is.
Let's hear your guess.
If
What
it
do you
is like
think?
1999,
Yep.
Phantom Menace.
Yes, it is. The next episode is our galaxy in our first episode into the galaxy far, far away with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Oh boy, I'm so excited. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
No, it's been a minute since I've watched that one also. So, and I think it's going to be fun, especially to dive into the prequel era in this day and age when it's been like so heavily memed and there's like this new appreciation for it. So I
Yeah,
think
I
it'll be
think
fun.
we'll get into it next week. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah. So we're going to get
Maybe.
into some
Ooh.
fun. But yes, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace for the next episode. But that will be for next time. This is the ending to this time. Jim, you got any outgoing words for the people at home?
Oh man, I
He
should have
doesn't.
prepared something.
He should have prepared something. He never has anything for you guys. But that's all right. I'll give the outro here. As always, you guys have been you. We have been me. These are the movies that we love so much. And until next time, dear listeners, we'll see you at the movies.